Hello, knowledge seekers. In this episode of 20-Minute Books, we're diving into No Self, No Problem by Chris Niebauer, a thought-provoking exploration of the Buddhist concept of the non-self through the lens of modern neuropsychology. Published in 2019, this book argues that the sense of a stable, continuous self is an illusion, a creation of the brain's language centers. Drawing from recent neuroscientific research, Niebauer challenges our deepest beliefs about personal identity and self-awareness. Chris Niebauer holds a professorship at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania, where he specializes in neuropsychology. He is known for his engaging classes on the differences between the left and right brain and has a particular interest in mindfulness and consciousness. His expertise brings a unique blend of scientific rigor and philosophical inquiry to this book, making complex ideas accessible and compelling. No Self, No Problem is tailored for those who are scientifically minded yet spiritually curious. It serves as an intriguing read for skeptics of meditation, yoga, and Tai Chi, and provides enlightening insights for individuals often described as left-brained. Join us as we summarize and dissect how Niebauer uses science to approach spiritual questions, potentially transforming how we think about our minds and ourselves. No Self, No Problem: How Neuropsychology is Catching Up to Buddhism. Introduction: Exploring the illusion of self through neuroscience and Buddhism. René Descartes famously asserted, "I think, therefore I am," positing that a stable, continuous I is defined by our thoughts. This concept has deeply influenced Western thought, projecting an image of a consistent identity at the core of human existence. Yet, is this self-perception as reliable as we believe? In contrast, Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhism, challenges this notion with a provocative viewpoint. The self is merely an illusion, created by sequences of thoughts stitching together a coherent identity. This illusion of self is believed to be the root cause of human dissatisfaction and suffering, encapsulated by the Zen Buddhist saying, "No self, no problem." Modern neuroscience offers fascinating insights that align surprisingly well with these ancient teachings. As we uncover more about how our brains function, especially under the influences of practices like yoga and meditation, formerly mystical assertions are being examined under the cold, hard light of scientific scrutiny. Firstly, consider how yoga and meditation impact the brain, particularly the right hemisphere, areas responsible for holistic processing and present moment awareness. These practices seem to quiet the chatter of our persistent inner narrative, allowing a broader sense of awareness that feels less bound by a rigid self-identity. Furthermore, the prowess of our brains in pattern recognition, a trait that has been crucial for survival and learning, turns out to have a catch. When the left hemisphere, which thrives on language and structured patterns, becomes overly dominant, our lives can be led by a narrative that insists on continuity and coherence, often at the cost of our experiencing life as it is. What happens when this narrative is quieted, or when the left hemisphere's influence is diminished through practices like meditation, or more dramatically, due to neurological events? Reports and studies suggest that individuals experience a dramatic shift in perception. No longer constrained by the incessant need to maintain a narrative, they encounter the world in a more direct, unfiltered manner, which many describe as liberating. Understanding how the concepts of neuroscience corroborate the wisdom found in Buddhism not only bridges cultural and philosophical divides, but also offers a practical pathway to reducing personal suffering. By learning about and embracing practices that help transcend the illusion of a continuous self, we might indeed find that many of our existential discomforts, anxiety, dissatisfaction, longing, diminish revealing a more profound way of engaging with the world and ourselves. Part 1: Unveiling the Myth of the Self. Insights from Neuroscience and Eastern Philosophy. What do you envision when you refer to I? For many of us, especially in Western cultures, the concept of I refers to our conscious self, like a pilot meticulously commanding the aircraft from the cockpit, situated somewhere behind our eyes, within our brains. This perceived pilot is what we consider our self, and it feels real and tangible. However, delve deeper into the human brain, the supposed headquarters of this self, and you'll find that neuroscience paints a different picture. Despite the advanced progress in brain mapping, where functions ranging from language to emotion have precise neural addresses, the self remains curiously untraceable. There's no singular center in the brain that can be definitively identified as the home of self-consciousness. This aligns with Buddhist and Taoist philosophy, which posits that the self, as we understand it, doesn't truly exist, that it's merely an illusion or a construct. These ancient Eastern teachings have long proposed the idea of anatta or anatman, the doctrine that there is no unchanging permanent self. The notion certainly challenges our everyday experience. Right now, as you process these words, thoughts such as "this is fascinating" or "I need to think about this" may flutter through your mind, seemingly originating from this inner self. Yet, if this self is illusory, where do these thoughts arise from? The implications of this illusion are significant, especially when considering its role in human suffering. The belief in a separate, enduring self can lead to attachment, ego conflicts, and a host of mental distresses as we cling to this constructed identity. It's this attachment to a fictional self that many spiritual practices suggest is the root of suffering. Before exploring the mechanics of how this sense of self is crafted within our minds, let's briefly understand the basic functionality of the brain to appreciate the complexity and the profound mystery that underlies our everyday consciousness and perceptions of self. Part 2: The Left Brain, the Master Storyteller. In the 1960s, groundbreaking medical procedures gave us unique insights into the human brain. A series of patients underwent innovative surgery to sever their corpus callosum, the vital bridge of neural fibers that links the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This procedure, aimed at reducing severe epileptic seizures, inadvertently led to some profound discoveries about how our brains function, particularly on how they contribute to the concept of self. By disconnecting the two hemispheres, researchers were able to observe how each side operates when isolated. One of the intriguing revelations from these split-brain patients was about the functional distinctions between the two hemispheres. Sensory input from the left side of the body is processed by the right hemisphere, and vice versa. But what's especially interesting is the role of the left brain. This hemisphere acts as an interpreter, consistently crafting explanations for our experiences. What's really fascinating, and somewhat unsettling, is how frequently this interpreter gets things wrong. Consider this illuminating experiment from the era of split-brain research. A patient's right eye, controlled by the left brain, was shown a picture of a chicken foot, and the left eye, controlled by the right brain, viewed a snow-covered scene. After presenting these images, the patient was shown a series of related pictures and asked to choose those that connected with the original images. Predictably, the patient's hands, controlled by their respective brain hemispheres, chose matching items. The right hand, left brain, picked a chicken, while the left hand, right brain, opted for a snow shovel. However, the real intrigue emerged when the patient was asked to explain their choice. Since the left brain is also the center of language processing, it rationalized the selection of the snow shovel, a choice actually made by the right brain. Instead of admitting confusion or uncertainty, the left brain concocted a perfectly logical yet incorrect explanation. The chicken foot goes with the chicken, and you need a shovel to clean out the chicken coop. This tendency of the left brain to fabricate stories where there is no factual basis is a startling illustration of its function as an interpreter. It constructs narratives that shape our perception of reality, regardless of their factual accuracy. This revelation not only highlights the narrative nature of human cognition, but also brings into question the reliability of the self that these narratives construct. Part 3. How the left brain shapes our understanding of the world through language. The left hemisphere of our brain serves as the linguistic hub, crafting not only our spoken dialogues, but also the silent monologues we conduct internally. This constant narration helps us pass and make sense of the world around us. Consider language as a mapping tool, a pragmatic means by which we symbolically categorize and navigate the complexities of reality. It simplifies our interactions and mutual understandings. For instance, when someone mentions a chair, there's an immediate shared recognition of what to expect: something with a seat, a backrest, and typically 4 legs. This shared linguistic code enables us to navigate our environments with more ease and less confusion. However, while immensely useful, this linguistic process invites a critical question. Are we masters of language, or has language mastered us? Our deep-seated habit of labeling the world often blurs the lines between labels and the entities they represent, leading us to mistake symbols for reality itself. Take the concept of a chair. At face value, it's a straightforward category: items designed for sitting, generally equipped with legs and a back. But ask what defines its inherent chairness, and the answer becomes elusive. There's no intrinsic quality common to all chairs, only an agreement to classify similar sitting structures under a common name. This realization underscores how language, while structurally convenient, often deceives us into believing in the existence of fixed essences or properties that don't exist beyond our conceptual frameworks. Now, apply this linguistic mechanism to the notion of self. When prompted by the question, "Who am I?" your left brain swiftly supplies answers in familiar categories: gender, profession, marital status. These labels are handy for orienting ourselves in social landscapes, but fall short of capturing the essence of who we truly are. Just like the generalized concept of a chair, our identities might not hinge on any actual, definable essence, but rather on the constructs and categories provided by language. This raises a provocative thought. Perhaps what we consider our self, our I, is not a solid, enduring entity, but a compilation of linguistic and categorical identifiers, as transient and negotiable as any other word. Understanding and questioning this linguistic influence opens a pathway to exploring how much of our perceived reality is actually a construct of language, and how this realization might liberate us from the confines of our constructed selves. Part 4. Pattern Recognition: A Blessing and a Curse for Our Brains. Language and categorization, foundational elements of human cognition, share a common cornerstone: the ability to discern and construct patterns. Language hinges on recognizing and reproducing patterns in grammar and syntax, while categorization depends on identifying coherent patterns among objects and ideas to classify them meaningfully. Our brains, particularly the left hemisphere, are adept at recognizing and, more crucially, creating these patterns, often where none exist. This phenomenon isn't merely about linguistic ability. It's about how our brains understand and interpret the world around us. Consider Hermann Rorschach's inkblot test from the 1920s. This psychological tool illustrated our penchant for projecting subjective interpretations onto ambiguous stimuli, revealing the intricate workings of our internal worlds. Individuals could look at the same spot of ink and see wildly different images: a butterfly, a face, or a flower. This illustrates not just creativity, but a deep-seated cognitive mechanism to impose order on chaos. However, this propensity for pattern recognition, while generally beneficial, has its drawbacks. When the brain incessantly seeks and perceives patterns, it can lead to misconceptions and, subsequently, mental anguish. For example, I know of a scenario involving a friend who misinterpreted her coworkers' secretive behaviors. Seeing them whisper and exchange glances, her brain quickly stitched together a narrative of exclusion and hostility. This misconstrued pattern led to significant distress, manifesting as fear, sadness, and anxiety. Yet the reality was starkly different. Her colleagues were planning a surprise birthday celebration for her. This incident underscores a profound point. Our brains are pattern-making machines, incessantly weaving disparate threads of our experiences into coherent narratives. Often, we refer to the most complex of these patterns as I, or the self. It's this intrinsic pattern-creating trait that constructs a continuous sense of self from our myriad experiences and sensations. Understanding this can be liberatively powerful. Recognizing that many of the patterns and narratives our minds conjure are nothing more than cognitive constructs can help alleviate mental suffering. It invites us to question the authenticity of the patterns we perceive, reminding us that they do not always represent objective reality. In recognizing the conjured nature of these patterns, we gain the ability to distance ourselves from them, reducing their impact on our emotional well-being. This insight into the brain's workings not only enlightens us about our cognitive architecture, but also offers a pathway to greater peace and mindfulness in navigating life's complexities. Part 5. Exploring Right Brain Consciousness with Dr. Jill Bolte, Taylor. Understanding the left brain's functions, language processing, reality interpretation, and pattern recognition, helps us comprehend how it constructs the perception of a continuous, stable self. But what happens when we shift our focus from left brain dominance to experiencing the world through our right brain? The remarkable story of Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, a neuroanatomist, sheds light on this intriguing perspective. In 1996, Dr. Taylor experienced a profound shift in consciousness due to a stroke that incapacitated her left brain. With the sudden silence of her language centers, her usual inner monologue, laden with past reflections and future anxieties, ceased. As her ability to categorize and segment reality dissolved, she no longer felt defined by the boundaries of individuality. Instead, she experienced an expansive sense of connection with the universe, feeling borderless, at peace, and utterly present in the moment. This profound experience mirrored what many seek through meditation and mindfulness practices, a transcendence of the usual chatter of the left brain, and a deep immersion in the here and now, facilitated by the right brain. Before her stroke, Dr. Taylor was deeply entrenched in her identity as an intellectual, her daily life dominated by the constant activity of her left brain. Post-stroke, her self-awareness expanded dramatically. She realized that she had the ability to choose which brain hemisphere to operate from, depending on the situation, balancing the analytical and categorizing tendencies of the left brain with the euphoric, interconnected experience offered by the right brain. This balance, which Dr. Taylor refers to as the middle way, wasn't merely a personal recovery goal. It became her vision for a better world. She advocated that fostering right brain consciousness could lead to more peace and connectedness among people. How then can we, too, access this right brain consciousness? Is it possible to temporarily set aside our left brain's relentless parsing of reality through language and patterns to simply exist in the moment? Exploring these questions can open pathways to enhanced awareness and tranquility, echoing Dr. Taylor's life-changing insights. In the next section, we delve into practical strategies for achieving this balance in our everyday lives. Part 6. Engaging the Right Brain. beyond language to spatial mastery. When we attempt to discuss the functions of the right brain, we find ourselves in a bit of a conundrum. The medium of our discussion, language, is a tool primarily wielded by the left brain. Moreover, our sense of self, the ever-present I in our narratives, is a left brain construct too. Essentially, when you're using language or engaging your sense of identity, you're operating from your left brain. The moment you try to articulate an experience, you're tapping into your left brain, which interprets and verbalizes. The right brain, in contrast, offers a different way of experiencing the world, one that cannot be fully captured in words. The key to accessing right brain consciousness, then, lies not in discussing it, but in experiencing it directly. While it's an oversimplification, you might consider the left brain as the center of language, and the right brain as the center of spatial awareness. For instance, the act of reaching for and grazily grabbing an object involves your right brain. It silently calculates the distance, orchestrates the movement of your arm, and adjusts your fingers to aptly grasp the target. These actions are driven by complex cognitive mechanisms that we don't typically recognize as thinking, simply because they don't involve verbal or analytical processing. This type of cognitive activity, often labeled as unconscious, underscores that substantial thinking occurs outside the paradigm of language and conscious reasoning. Yet, this doesn't make it any less sophisticated. Activities such as yoga and meditation offer pathways to engage with this nonverbal, spatially savvy aspect of our cognition. In practices like yoga, there's little need for the running commentary that usually fills our minds. The focus instead shifts to the movement, the alignment, and the breath. These elements encourage a presence that transcends verbal thought, allowing practitioners to immerse themselves in the moment without the clutter of language. Similarly, meditation often employs focus on breathing, a process that ordinarily unfolds without conscious thought. By centering attention on breathing, one aligns with a fundamental unconscious activity, navigating away from linguistic thought processes and entering a state more representative of right brain activity. This approach doesn't render these experiences unconscious, but rather highlights a heightened state of awareness, one that is challenging to articulate, yet profoundly rich in experience. It's an active engagement where thought occurs not through words, but through an intrinsic understanding of space and movement. Understanding and cultivating this right brain awareness can deepen our connection to the world in ways that are not bound by language, but are profoundly felt and lived. This realm of experience, the right brain's domain, may be challenging to describe, yet it is integral to grasping the full spectrum of human consciousness. Part 7. Unlocking the Power of Intuitive Intelligence. While renowned for its spatial capabilities, the right hemisphere of the brain harbors talents far beyond navigating three-dimensional space. It encompasses a realm of cognition often referred to as non-conscious, that is, knowledge and insights that emerge not from verbal thinking, but through other channels, notably intuition. Intuition, sometimes dismissed by those who prioritize left-brain analytical reasoning as mere superstition or coincidence, represents a profound form of intelligence. Think about those moments when someone just knows something without a rational basis. For instance, feeling compelled to call a friend at just the right moment, or inexplicably taking an umbrella on a clear day, only to be caught in an unexpected downpour. While the mechanisms behind intuitive thought are not fully understood by neuroscience, dismissing intuition as unreal merely because it eludes linguistic explanation reflects a limited understanding of human cognition. Moreover, emerging research suggests that in specific scenarios, the right brain's intuitive capabilities might surpass the analytical prowess of the left brain in decision-making efficiency. A compelling demonstration of this comes from a study involving a financial card game. participants were given $2,000 and could choose cards from one of two decks, aiming to maximize their virtual earnings. The first deck offered high rewards but also high risks, whereas the second deck offered lower rewards with smaller risks. Though optimal strategy favored the conservatively rewarding second deck, it often took participants many draws, guided by left brain analysis, to recognize this pattern. Interestingly, right brain intuition grasped the situation much quicker. Researchers monitoring the participants noted increased sweating, a physiological sign of nervousness, in the players' hands after just 10 draws from the riskier deck, long before the players consciously realized which deck was safer. Some players, absorbed in the game, remained unaware of the deck's configurations, even as their bodies reacted to the risks, indicating a deeper level of knowledge residing beyond conscious awareness. These findings illuminate the nature of intuition. The right brain pursues subtle cues and patterns that the left brain might miss or process slower, communicating these insights as gut feelings or sudden inspirations. Though hard to articulate, these intuitive signals are real and impactful. They suggest that our right brain processes information and makes judgments that, if we're attentive, can guide us in decision-making in ways that defy straightforward logical explanation. This blend of intuition and analysis showcases the balanced interplay between our brain's hemispheres, emphasizing that embracing both aspects can enhance our understanding, decision-making, and overall cognitive richness. At its core, intuition is not just a mysterious feeling, but a critical component of our cognitive toolkit, one that we would do well to appreciate and cultivate. Part 8. Cultivating right brain qualities through compassion and gratitude. In Zen Buddhism, there's a concept known as prajnaparamita, often translated as the perfection of wisdom. This profound teaching underscores a type of knowledge that transcends language, suggesting it may be a domain well suited for the right hemisphere of our brains. Known for its holistic understanding and ability to process non-verbal information, the right brain could be key to accessing this deeper wisdom. As we've explored, the right brain doesn't lean on language or categorization like its left brain counterpart. Instead, it perceives the larger, interconnected picture and can access insights that elude the more analytical left hemisphere. Engaging this side of our brain more actively could enhance our approach to life and deepen our understanding. One path to strengthening right brain consciousness is through the practice of compassion. Compassion is a pivotal element in Buddhist teachings, defined as the ability to see others as reflections of ourselves. It's believed that such empathetic perspectives primarily arise from the right brain, particularly from a region known as the right temporoparietal junction, RTPJ. This area is dedicated to considering others' viewpoints, and it becomes activated every time we empathize with someone else's experiences and conditions. Moreover, gratitude is another powerful tool for fostering right brain activity. Research has demonstrated that feelings of gratitude engage the right brain more significantly. A 2008 study in the journal Cerebral Cortex showed heightened activity in the right hemisphere when individuals experienced gratitude. Further, a 2014 study in social cognitive and affective neuroscience found that regularly grateful people had increased gray matter in the right hemisphere. Practicing gratitude can be transformative. Instead of passively experiencing life or reacting negatively to inconveniences like traffic jams, actively finding elements to be grateful for can shift your perception. Consider that a delay might offer a moment of pause, a space for reflection, or simply a break from the hustle of daily routines. Living with an awareness of compassion and gratitude invites us to step out of the left brain's interpretative narratives that often lead to stress and dissatisfaction. For instance, feeling irritation when someone cuts us off in traffic, or annoyance at being caught in a rainstorm, are typical left brain responses, framing experiences in a negative light. These reactions can perpetuate feelings of unhappiness. By nurturing our right brain capabilities, embracing compassion and gratitude, we not only align more closely with values that foster interpersonal connection and personal well-being, but also move towards a mental state that mitigates the habitual patterns of stress and frustration. Realizing that the suffering self is often a construct of our left brain's narratives empowers us to embrace a more peaceful and connected life experience. Final summary. The essence of these insights is rooted in understanding the distinct roles of our brain's hemispheres. The left hemisphere, a hub for language processing, categorization, and pattern recognition, constructs what we perceive as a stable, continuous self. This intricate process, however, often leads to relentless internal dialogues and contributes to various forms of mental distress. To mitigate the dominance of the left brain and the psychological strains it can induce, embracing practices that enhance right brain consciousness proves beneficial. Activities like yoga and meditation, deeply embedded in Eastern traditions, allow us to experience a state of mind where the focus shifts from constant self-referential thoughts to a broader, more connected, and present awareness. Engaging in these practices fosters a mental environment where peace and mindfulness can flourish, reducing our overall mental burden and enhancing our life experience. Thank you for joining me today on this journey of learning and discovery as we explored the insights of another thought-provoking book in our growing library of knowledge. If you've enjoyed our time together, please take a moment to follow our podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and share 20-minute books with other knowledge seekers. Your support truly means a lot. Don't forget to join me again in the next episode, where we will delve into another enriching book. Until then, happy reading and happy listening.